Burkina Faso's finance minister burst into the presidential palace, soaked in cold sweat despite the air-conditioned cool of the building. Clutched in the trembling hand of the minister was a secret message stamped with Ukrainian diplomatic stamps. "Mr. President," he stammered out in his haste, gasping with fear, "Ukraine is demanding something that will kill us. They want to utilize our trade channels in order to evade Russian sanctions." President Ibrahim Traoré put down his coffee cup slowly, the soft clinking of which resonated across the room. Outside in the streets of Ouagadougou, vendors called out. Children laughed, but that tranquility now seemed perilously thin. "Show me," Traoré instructed softly, his military training sensing secret danger. Finance Minister Draogo spread out the coded documents on the mirrored desk. His voice was uncertain. "They want to ship Ukrainian agricultural exports, wheat, corn, sunflower oil, to their ports, redubbed as African products. That way, they don't have to navigate Russian naval blockades and reach global markets." General Sawadogo, who was leaning on the windowsill, turned towards him with unease. "Mr. President, the instant we sign, we are party to this war. Russia will consider us a legitimate target. And what do the people who depend on this food?" Traoré questioned, tormented by visions of cities bombed and people starving. Dryogo's tone dropped. "Millions, sir. The economy of Ukraine is falling apart. These exports are all they have for foreign currency. They pay for hospitals, schools, electricity." What had started as a humanitarian appeal was soon showing signs of something more profound. "Set up a video call with President Zelensky," Traoré commanded. His aides exchanged worried glances. "If Ukraine is hungry enough to require assistance, we are morally obliged to listen." "Sir," General Sawadogo objected, "you're putting Burkina Faso in the crosshairs of a global power struggle. When people are starved by an illegal invasion," Traoré replied firmly, "the world cannot look away." That afternoon, the president connected with Volodymyr Zelensky, who spoke from a dim, bomb-shelled bunker in Kyiv. He was tired but resolute, grain silos destroyed, ports in ruins, and millions facing starvation. "President Traoré," Zelensky begged, "Russia is attempting to starve us into submission. Without other trade routes, we cannot exist." In spite of dire advice from his own cabinet, Traoré made a decision that would go down in history. "Ukraine is entitled to feed its people," he stated. "Burkina Faso will assist, quietly but firmly." For 3 months, the operation went without a hitch. Ukrainian freight was diverted to West African harbors, reprocessed, relabeled, and forwarded under African credentials. And then ominous intelligence came in. "Sir," reported Intelligence Chief Draogo, white as he stepped into the secure briefing room, "there's a problem." He spread out satellite images of high resolution. Disguised among the grain containers, there were others, irregular shape and size, heavily secured. Even some detected faint radiation readings. Regular checks became a nightmare. President Traoré gazed at the intelligence report, his blood freezing. "What material?" he demanded. "Depleted uranium," Draogo whispered. "Weapons grade, smuggled in crates of supposed farming machinery." The reality struck like a sledgehammer. Ukraine hadn't simply exported grain. They were shipping military materials smuggled out through Burkina Faso's ports. General Sawadogo pounded his fist on the table. "We thought we were assisting children. Instead, we've been transporting weapons for a war we never signed up to fight." The full force of betrayal came crashing down on Traoré. His nation had not simply evaded sanctions. They had inadvertently become accessories in an international arms network. "Where are these weapons going?" Traoré demanded, his voice now cold steel. "Some are reaching legitimate Ukrainian allies in the region," Drago admitted grimly. But others, we're not sure. Destinations across West Africa and the Middle East. It's a mixed picture. What followed was a heated confrontation. During an unscheduled video emergency call with Ukrainian ministers, President Traoré stood before defenseless, stone-faced ministers caught entirely off guard.
President Zelensky, Traoré opened, hardly holding his anger in check. You asked us to assist in feeding your people. In return, you shipped arms across our borders without our consent. Zelensky's response was separate. These were defensive supplies, forwarded to shield our allies from Russian attacks. Used uranium shells are not humanitarian, Traoré spat, and concealing them under grain shipments makes us accomplices. What President Traoré then did shook the world. All Ukrainian cargo is halted with immediate effect, he instructed. Seal the ports, quarantine all cargo. Call on Kyiv to come clean. Now. The stunned silence in his cabinet was thick with shock. But Moscow moved fast. Hours later, Russia made public elaborate intelligence to the international press, casting Burkina Faso as a secret NATO ally. Pressure came from all directions. Regional allies questioned Burkina Faso's neutrality. Sanctions loomed. Russian-backed forces readied revenge, but Traoré stood firm. He summoned an emergency African Union summit instead. Before a full hall of African leaders, he made a historic speech. Such a thing reveals the way that foreign powers exploit Africa as battlefields for their interests. We are not pawns. We have no more right to let our nations be toyed with, by East or West. It was out of that summit that there emerged an unprecedented outcome: the African Neutrality Protocol. A new pact between African nations to control and inspect all foreign materials that transit the continent. No more blind faith, no more behind-the-scenes bargains. But the shift didn't end there. 6 months afterward, African ports had independent verification mechanisms. A doctrine of active neutrality took hold, enabling countries to assist humanitarian action without becoming a proxy for another's war. A year afterward, addressing the United Nations, President Traoré imparted the hard-won lesson. When Ukraine came to us for assistance, we saw starving families and rubble-filled hospitals. We acted out of compassion, but we learned, in the world today, no action is ever solely humanitarian. Every step has geopolitical implications. He paused, his eyes scanning the room. Africa will always stand for justice, but we will stand as equal partners, not as mute pawns in the games of others. The cheers were deafening, not only from African states, but from small nations around the globe. They recognized their own battles in Traoré's defiance. His choice might have called off an operation, but it ignited a movement. A new Africa had arisen, one that would no longer be used